Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another webinar by Liyab. Welcome to the new members of this group. By the way, I am Deirdre. I am the CEO and founder of Liyab. And Liyab, if you're not familiar with this yet, we are an e-learning startup focused on helping Gen Z Filipinos transition to working life and establish their careers. So tonight we have a very interesting topic, which is basically like what are alternatives to internships. We realized that actually like transitioning to working life doesn't start when you graduate. It starts much earlier if you're, for example, going into internships, or you have to do practicums, or you just want to get experience even before you start your formal employment, for example. But with the world today, we're all staying at home, hopefully, or a lot of different companies have now transitioned to work from home setups, or some of them are really like just being very careful about getting interns, for example, for the season. I know the internship season has passed already. I know some people have done virtual internships. We've partnered with a company, for example, Texas Instruments, who's just starting their virtual internships, I believe, this month. But those opportunities aren't like available for everyone and not for all disciplines as well. So I invited Lara tonight to talk about alternatives to internships. And there are actually a lot of different alternatives to internships. We'll explore why internships exist in the first place. Like, if internships exist to get you experience, is that the only thing that will give you experience? So we're looking now into like alternatives for internships, especially during this time. And I wanted Lara to speak about this because I met her pre-COVID. I met her pre-COVID through Liab's own resume consultation, free resume consultation program. So I took a look at her resume before, and we went through like a long session just discussing about like how we can present her experience better. And one of the things that I've been really amazed with is how, as a second year student at the time, she had a lot of like org work and volunteering and freelancing experience already. So she doesn't necessarily have like strong internships in her resume, but her resume was still very full of these experiences. And in the past couple of months, even during this quarantine, she has been locking in like experiences also for freelancing as well. So I found that very impressive and very interesting. So I think like she's the best person to talk to you guys about this, especially because like she is still currently in school and she still has options to like intern, to join orgs, to volunteer, and to freelance. So it would be interesting to like get a perspective from someone who is still in school but has all these experiences under her belt. So I think I've given enough of an intro for Lara tonight. So what's gonna happen? Of course, as usual, if you have questions for Lara, um, we'll answer them in the end. So just feel free to leave your comments on this Facebook Live video, and then I'll be back after Lara's talk to ask them to Lara. All right. So please enjoy, and I hope you learn so much from Lara's talk tonight. Hi, Lara.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And today I am going to talk about internship alternatives. So, for me, that is organizations, volunteering, and freelancing. I'll be digging deep into these three things today and share my personal stories as well as some tips and tricks to finding these opportunities and making the most out of it despite quarantine. Okay, so honestly speaking, I got into all these alternatives out of boredom because I was bored. Classes turned me off, like that soft boy I met at a party. They were good. They gave me a lot of knowledge, but they felt spiritless to me, like I was just there to comply. I felt like it could have given me more, but instead I was left with essays, which were pretty easy for me to write personally, and things to memorize, and some of my teachers aren't qualified to teach the subject, so there's that too. But I digress. I knew that I couldn't fully learn inside the four walls of a classroom. See, a lot of people believe that learning ends when you leave the school grounds, but It's not like that. Learning is a lifelong experience, and the classroom is just the traditional way to learn. So I knew that if I really wanted to learn and apply what I've learned in school, I had to make the world my classroom. So that's what I did. Okay, so before we dive into the nitty gritty of things, here is something about me. I am an incoming third year college student from Surigao City. Surigao is a city in Mindanao, which is very small for me, and I dream big, so I went to Cebu to study and grab all the opportunities I could get. I started freelancing as a content writer in senior high and had clients like education.ph and URG Asia. Since I started college around 2 years ago, I have joined at least 8 school organizations and am currently officer in 3 of those school organizations. I juggled all that with ACADS and volunteering gigs outside of school. I even joined a poets society. So it's been wild, but I managed to be a constant Dean's Lister so far. I broadened my network, earned some cash along the way, and even received a job offer. All because of these internship alternatives. I mean, of course, I've also had internships, 3 under my belt so far, but we're not going to dig into that too much. Another fun fact, I'm an anxious person. When I was younger, I cried whenever someone said hi to me. Even until now, sometimes I can't bring myself to say lugar lang. That means para ho to the jeepney driver or knock on the faculty's door. And I hate it. So to cope, my 17-year-old self thought she should join extracurriculars, get busy, and get committed. That way, I had no choice but to actually venture out of my comfort zone. And it worked because now I'm speaking for a webinar. So thank you, Liyab, for inviting me. And thanks again for tuning in, guys. So, slide 3, why all the alternatives? Let's start with why. Why do all these things? They probably won't make such a strong impression on a resume compared to internships. Plus, a lot of people find decent jobs with just one internship. So why do these things matter? I mean, personally, as a college student, there's a lot of things going on with academics. So why do I need to make myself even busier, right? Is it worth all the stress and the occasional breakdowns? The answer depends on the person. But for me, I mainly have 3 reasons. Okay. 1, resume. One reason why is definitely because I thought it would add to my resume. I know that the job hunt is tough and competitive, and I wanted to add some shiny little things on paper to give me some sort of edge or credibility. But one quick tip I can give right now is to not do it just for the resume. It's super important to remember that you are not a piece of paper and your resume cannot and should not define your life. So don't let that be the only reason you're pursuing these alternatives. I'm saying this because I am a big why person. I love asking why, and I think your why or your purpose for doing the things you do really matters because that's your intention. And in org work, in volunteering, freelancing, it's hard to stay long and actually learn and make your time worthwhile if you don't go in for the right reasons. My second reason is I wanted to learn and apply. Emphasis on and. See, we have a lot of discussions in school about communication theories, journalism principles, communication planning, so on and so forth. But we don't really have an avenue to apply what we've learned. To be fair, though, we are given projects that we can so that we can apply what we've learned. But it's still done in an artificial setting, at least for the most part. So I found that these alternatives are a great way to apply what I learned in school even before graduation. Yeah. Better yet, it's a great way to learn new skills and new things and then apply them. For example, I applied to be a PRO for an organization in school. And through this role, I learned how to manage social media accounts, to design posters with impeccable turnaround time, as well as do chat support. And these are things I did not learn in class. I learned to do it on the job. And I also learned about the importance of branding and internal communication, which we do talk about in class, but reading about it, you can't really grasp how important it is in reality. I don't know if that's just me, but reading about it, I can't really grasp how important it is in reality. But when I'm actually doing it, when I'm doing it on the job, I can grasp how important it is. And although this inevitably leaves room for mistakes, that's okay. That's normal. I learned not to beat myself up for it too much. As long as I'm um, doing the best I can in a given time or a moment. So my third reason is to explore and unfear. Explore, understand, and not fear life after grad. So I say this because as a college student, I have a lot of anxieties and fears and existential crisis about um, life after graduation or the real world. So I thought that if I explored certain fields and certain job positions or like roles rather, I could get a better feel of what I wanted to do after graduation because I may have a course, communication is my course, but I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do exactly. Do I want to go to journalism, to graphic design, to marketing? I was not sure. I did not know because I wanted to do everything, or so I thought. But when I got into these alternatives, I found um, I found a career path that I wanted to go towards, which I'll talk about later. But but basically, I couldn't have done that if I didn't go into these alternatives. Okay, so how are they different from each other? These three things. Joining orgs. Firstly, joining orgs is pretty self-explanatory. Joining orgs is joining orgs as a member or officer. It can be in campus or off campus. And they usually have one primary purpose or goal or interest, field of interest. They usually delve, yes, into certain fields of interests, like HR or communication. For volunteering, it's temporarily providing services. It's usually pro bono for an entity or project. Typically, in my experience, it's for a cause or due to lack of manpower. And it's also low commitment. I say low commitment with quotation marks because you still need to be committed to what you're doing, to what you're volunteering for. When I say low, I mean that it's not as structured and stiff compared to freelancing or actual work experience. So it's more light-hearted and flexible in a way, but you still need to commit to it. Freelancing. Okay. This one can be a bit complicated, but basically it's offering paid services to multiple companies or people at different times. So in freelancing, there is no employee-employer relationship. You call the shots, meaning you decide on your work hours, you decide on your rate, your deliverables, your deadline, etc. So a lot of people actually work as professional freelancers and find a living there. But students or fresh grads can also dip their toes into it to get a feel for it and see if they like it, or also just for some extra cash. So that's the difference between the three. And then now let's go into how. how did these three alternatives help me? And how did they lead from one opportunity to another? Okay, so I'm going to start with orgs, my organizational background, and what I learned from each of these positions and affiliations. So for position, I first became an external secretary in Solaris. That's a co-curricular org. And then after that, I became, soon after that, I became all of these. I took all of these positions at one time. So soon after that, I became PRO for advertisements and documentation in a people management organization. And then soon after that, I also became literary editor for Today's Carolinian, our student publication. So why did I get into these things? I'm a busy college student, so why? Firstly, for secretary, I just I just first got into college at the time, and I wanted to do something apart from just academics because my senior high life was mostly focused on academics, and I wanted to go into extracurriculars. So that's why I went for a secretary role. And then for PRO, I actually applied for this position because a secretary's job can be a bit stiff and structured and even redundant or repetitive because of all the paperwork you're going to do. So I thought that I might get bored or get burned out easily doing this kind of work. So to balance it out, I took on a PRO role because it's more creative and free flowing. And that's something more in my court, something that I could switch on over if I got stressed with secretary work. That way that way I'm procrastinating with secretary work, but I'm still being productive with PRO work. So it's just a back and forth between the two. And then literary editor came in. So this is I got I was offered two positions. I could either be news editor or literary editor. And prior to that, I was a writer for the publication. So that took up a lot of my energy because writing takes up a lot of brain cells. So I figured maybe it's time to level up a bit. Maybe it's time to do editing work again because I've also had experience with editing, so I'm quite confident in it. And then I chose literary because news editing is time consuming work since it's a student publication. Literaries are not always there. So I figured that I could balance my time better as a literary editor. So that's why I took on those roles. So basically, what I considered is variety. I didn't want to go full PRO for all three orgs, for example, because I felt like that would be redundant and my learning would be limited. And then I also considered the orgs and positions and how they align with my values and interests. And then time and mental resources, like I said earlier, because we got to manage our time and our energy. So there's that. And then what I learned as a secretary, the opportunities and learnings I got is that I learned to process and organize paperwork. I learned how to fix a constitution, how to draft and revise it. I learned how to document events, take minutes of the meeting, coordinate with school offices for venue booking, reservations, etc. And these are things that I did not learn in school because my course is geared towards communication, so journalism stuff. So this was something really useful, especially for logistics and stuff like that. And then for PRO, what I learned is social media graphics, designing graphics and presentation decks with impeccable turnaround time because it's a school org. We have times where we just cram everything in a week for an event, things like that. So I had to like come up with quick graphics like in less than a day on the day that it was instructed to me. So things like that. I also learned to do chat support, to conceptualize for promotional videos, learned that branding guidelines are super important, and it also led me to confidently pursue graphic design through volunteering and internships because currently I'm interning for basically Borrowed right now. That's a sustainable fashion brand. And I found the internship through Instagram ads. It just got there in my feed. So I digress. This position actually means a lot to me because I'm branded as a writer for most of my life. So I'm kind of stuck in the writer role and I wanted to break out of that label. So I got into PRO for advertisements. And it worked because now I'm branding myself as a content creator instead of a writer. Okay. Okay, so literary editor. This is pretty straightforward. I edited, proofread, and critiqued prose and poetry. I applied principles in journalism that I learned in class. I also learned about technical stuff like the AP style guide, which I had no idea what that was prior to this. And it also led me to an internship, another one, as a global correspondent for Change magazine. I I got into that because of a group chat. We have a group chat and our editor in chief just shared this internship opportunity with us. And that's how I got it. So really, really useful. Apart from that, I also have an org outside of school. So that's Almost Poet Society. I got into it because I was invited. I There was a time in senior high when I just kept on posting statuses, like long introspective Facebook statuses and really wordy introspections. But I don't know, people found it enjoyable, I guess. People found it interesting. So one one college student reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to join a spoken word group?" And I said yes. So through Almost Poet Society, I learned spoken word. I got to perform on stages from cafes to a music festival, like the one in the picture. That's Bisaya Music Festival, the first of its kind in Cebu. So that was really new to me because I have never done that before, and I had bad stage fright when I was younger. I also taught a paid poetry workshop, managed and collaborated for events like open mics, and because of the members in Almost Poets, because it's a very varied sort of group. There are content writers, there are teachers, there are musicians, so on and so forth. So one of the members got me a project-based job. She referred me to one of her friends, and yeah, it was pretty cool. It paid 300 pesos per hour, which I thought was pretty good already for a part-time job. I did the night shift. I did around I think 11 to 2 a.m. despite school, but it was okay. So, yeah, that's for orgs. For volunteering, I have been doing a lot of volunteering for social good since quarantine. When the quarantine first started in Cebu, it um it took a toll on my mental health because quarantine and all the things happening. So to cope, I wanted to help people because I thought maybe by helping people, I can help myself along the way too. So that's what I did. I volunteered for a lot of things like this photo here. It says One Visayas, Eduk Action contra COVID-19. That's a laymanized brochure that was only supposedly for a barangay in our city. But then it expanded, it blew up. It's now with over 2,000 households in Eastern and Central Visayas, and we did not expect anything like that. We just wanted to help, and we're glad that it helped a lot of people. I got this volunteering stint from a friend because um, I have a lot of friends in organizations with multiple organizations, and we all just communicate with each other whenever we need volunteers. So when a friend was saying that, oh, hey, I need a volunteer for a brochure, I just jumped right into it because I wanted to do something. I didn't want to feel idle and useless being stuck at home. So I did that. I also grabbed a couple other friends and invited them to do the graphics and the translations because I did the writing. So that's it. And then after that, shortly after, I joined Make Sense reaction program. I learned about Make Sense through liyab actually because I saw one of the webinars and it featured Make Sense. So that's how I got into Make Sense. That's how I learned about it. And then I got into the mental health program or category because, again, I was going through a lot of mental health issues and I still am. So I felt like maybe if I got a better understanding of how mental health works, how mental health advocates do the things they do, and so on and so forth, then I could make myself feel better too. And again, also help other people along the way. So what I did here is sent I endorsed or like promoted these free free calls whenever you need someone to just talk to. And then we also organized a virtual open mic event. So there's that. And I did all the graphics, the promotional materials for that. So I'm pretty proud too. And I owe it actually to my PRO role because prior to that, I wouldn't have had the confidence to go into graphics because I don't have professional experience. Okay, so that's for volunteering for social good. Of course, prior to the pandemic, I've also had volunteering stints. I volunteered as a writer for Sinulog. I think that was last year. I volunteered as a radio broadcaster for a local radio show. I volunteered as a protocol officer, and then other things. There's just so much. It's so hard to keep track. But I guess I just want to be active and to help people. Generally, that's it. So next, my freelancing story. This is something I'm really passionate about because prior to freelancing, I only thought that my my career paths could be journalism or marketing. And when I got into freelancing and I knew that oh, I can work, I can gain money and be financially stable without actually being an employee. And I like that idea because I don't like working for 8 hours every day. I've tried that as an intern and it's not something for me. And I like to manage my own time, my own rate, all that stuff. So that's why I really love freelancing. So how did I get into freelancing? Um, it actually started with my first client, and I got him with my first client. I got my first client with zero professional experience and no resume sent. So how did I do that? How did this happen? I honestly can't take credit for that because I did not do much, but instead, um, someone referred me to a friend of hers looking for a content writer. And she when I asked her why she did it, she said she trusted me because I have a long list of writing credentials, like in school, not outside of school, but like I joined writing contests, student papers, stuff like that. So in a way, I built my personal brand around writing unconsciously, and it stuck to people's minds. So one of my acquaintances referred me to someone looking for a writer, and that's how I got the job or the client. And there's a lot of there may be some arguments where people say that oh she just got it because of her connections, and okay, that's kind of true, but it also has that argument also has a really negative connotation to it personally in my experience, because when you say she just got it through connections, it suggests that you didn't really do anything, that you just got it because of your connections. But it's not so black and white like that, because it's less about connections and more trust building and relationships for me. Like I didn't just tell someone, hey, if you find someone looking for a content writer, endorse me. I didn't do anything like that. I just did what I'm good at, um, told people about it, and it eventually reached other people. So basically, that's what I did. So what I can say here is appreciate and give value to the people around you because they're the ones who can really help you in your career. Soon after my first client, my teacher started referring me to some of his friends and colleagues too. So this teacher I'm not particularly close with, but I think he's seen enough of my essays, I guess, to trust my writing. So because of him, I got to work as a freelance content writer in education.ph as well as other clients. And of course, I've also been searching for clients myself. I usually use Upwork. It's pretty easy to use. I just upload my profile and then apply to clients and projects. So that's for my freelancing story. Generally, there's a lot of intricacies to it, but I can't go into that right now. But that's basically it. So what now? What can you do to start with all these internship alternatives? Okay, so tips for joining organizations. I highly recommend doing a background check because there are orgs that are not active and you mostly pay for these organizations. There's a registration fee, right? And some are like really expensive, like 280 pesos. And I think that's expensive for me because I'm a college student. But there's a lot of orgs that are really inactive and don't really give you your money's worth and your time's worth because they ask you to attend this and that, but they don't really give you much. So do a background check and see if their values and interests and goals align with yours. Also, actively participate when joining orgs because joining orgs is easy. You can just fill up an application form, maybe go through a registration process and an onboarding process, pay the fee, and then that's it. You're already affiliated with an org and you can already add it in your resume. But it's not about that. And joining is barely half the experience. You have to actively participate and engage with your members, the other members, to actually be able to get something out of it that's substantial and concrete. That's more than just a title. So there's that. Actively participate. Another tip is to consider applying to be an officer and be thoughtful about it. So, being an officer, I understand is not for everyone because we all have academics to prioritize, and I understand that. That's why I say be thoughtful about it. Know your time, your mental resources, your capabilities, and also check in with the org if these are responsibilities that you can take. Know their culture and system for officers. Lastly, um, last tip is quality over quantity. I know a lot of friends, a lot of people who join like 10 plus orgs and they're officers in all of them. And I'm like, how do you manage your time, sister? Because it just gets so hard. I mean, 3 orgs, 4 orgs is already hard to juggle, along with academics and other engagements. Plus, I also have a friend who has, I think, 8 orgs, and she's an officer in all of them. And she's really active. She does her job, but because she's so spread thin like that, it 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 affects her mental health, and it also affects her productivity in the job. So she has to like deal with all 8, and sometimes they overlap. So there's that. So for tips for volunteering, do a background check again. Background checks are really important because you have to know what you're getting into. And then it's especially important to know about what you're volunteering for and the volunteering system because I've had experiences where their system for volunteers um, is difficult, to say the least. Like I would sign up for this and I'm a volunteer, but they never contact me because of their weird system. Something like that. There are things like that. So it's best to do a background check on that. Maybe ask previous volunteers or current volunteers for their feedback on the volunteer program. Next is know your responsibilities and length of service. Because, like I said earlier, volunteering is temporary. But how temporary? Is some volunteering stints are one-time thing, it's a one-time thing, one-time stint, and some don't really have a deadline of sorts. So it's better to clarify what these responsibilities and length of service is, so that you can do your job well, and so that you also won't be overworked for some reason. And then another thing, like I said before, is to also be committed, because it's a lot of people say it's just volunteering. They don't really like, they can't hold it against you if you don't show up every time. But it's still a responsibility that you committed to. So it's important to commit. And then another tip is don't be afraid to volunteer because of lack of experience. I have a lot of friends who are shy or who are afraid to volunteer because they think that, I don't really have experience in graphic design, or I don't really know anything about video editing or logistics and so on and so forth. But that's okay because it's volunteering. They're just looking for all the help they need, and you can always learn on the job. Or you can ask your co-volunteers and facilitators to help you and guide you, because it's a very, in my experience, a very um, open, open alternative. It's not so stiff like internships. Like with volunteering, you can be a bit casual about it. Another tip is to interact with your co-volunteers, because you're going to be working with them. It's going to be hard if you're tight-lipped around them, or if you don't have a good relationship. So there's that. And then for volunteer opportunities, I understand that a lot of people find it hard to look for some. So I made a pinned Twitter thread, yes, in my account, field of opportunities for volunteering, internships, and other stuff like that, if you want to see it. And then lastly, check in with the people around you for volunteer opportunities, because I found most of my stints and my gigs through the people around me. I just ask my fellow co-officers or friends or acquaintances. And especially with the pandemic right now, there are a lot of volunteer initiatives. So you can really do a lot to help people if you just find the opportunities. Read group chats, because I mostly found them through group chats as well. And then tips for freelancing. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people are starting small businesses. So take the chance to offer them your services for a small fee. That way you're helping them and you're helping yourself as well. Personally, I know a lot of people who started small businesses and startups. And then I'm actually freelancing right now as a personal branding strategist for Metamorphosis Group. They started way before the pandemic, but they're still a small startup. And I help them like with fixing LinkedIn profiles and resumes and cover letters and stuff like that, personal branding related things. And how I got that is because I honored my contacts and the people surrounding me. I got that client. I got to work with MG because the owner is actually my cousin. The owner and founder is my cousin. And then we're not close at all because she lives in Manila and I live in Cebu, and she rarely visits. So um, I got to connect with her because she saw my education.ph blogs. We had we had a sort of reunion around January earlier this year. And then we just started talking about what we were doing with our lives, and I said, "Oh, I did freelance writing for education," and then she was like, "Oh, I have a startup business," and then that's how it happened. It's really not that complicated. You just talk to people and see what they need, and then if you feel like you can solve their problems or fill in the gaps, then you go and offer your value, offer the service that you can provide. So it goes to so yeah, it relates to tip 3. Offer value always. Start cheap or pro bono to get a feel for it and to build your portfolio. But don't stay there for too long. With freelancing, you have to know your worth eventually. I'm just saying to start cheap or pro bono as a suggestion, just so that you can get an idea of what to do and how to negotiate, because you negotiate prices with your clients. So originally, I started with a peso per word because I felt like I wasn't super capable enough or I wasn't professional enough. But then I raised it up to, it's not even per word now. It really depends on the project because some projects have different features. Like one person could be asking for 5 blogs and one person could be asking for a research paper, help with research papers. And that's super different. I can't do word per word rate for that. So I learned to value myself and the work I do. And then another tip is to find a niche. You can't be I mean you can be all around an all around freelancer, but it's going to be hard to establish yourself as an expert and with personal branding rather, if you don't have a niche. Because again, similar to what I said with my friend who was spread out in 8 orgs, you can't be spread out in different niches. So you can't do like writing and then I don't know, video editing or hosting and expect to be counted as a professional in all of those things. So you can focus on one and then spread out slowly afterwards. So in my case, I started with content writing. That's blogs and website content. And then I expanded to graphic design and then I also do pitch decks now. But mainly I do content writing and content creation. So that's my niche. And then tips for freelancing more, because there's really a lot that you can do with freelancing. So, if possible, have a contract or ask for down payment upfront to avoid being cheated and ghosted. I have been there. One of my clients, um, we agreed on a project. I worked with them for months, I think 8 months or 5 to 8 months, yes. And then they didn't pay me and I didn't have a contract and I didn't ask for a down payment. So it's really dangerous. So I just suggest to have something like that to just to make your work valued by your clients. Because some clients can be difficult. Let's just put it that way. And then another tip is to practice personal branding because that's how I started because people kept referring me and because of my personal branding, how I always had these introspective statuses in Facebook. That was what I was known for. And yeah. And another thing is to learn to set your own terms and know your worth. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I already explained that earlier. And lastly, go into it like it's a passion project because it is, at least for me. So that's it. Thanks for listening.
All right. Thank you so much, Lara. I've actually learned a lot na, about the freelancing industry just from your talk. That's something I haven't really truly explored yet. But I've also noted down some very interesting input on like how important it is to have variety in terms of the experiences that you're getting. So one example is like how you did say that you are a writer first and foremost, but then you've tried to get org work, for example, that allows you to diversify the experiences, which is something I've noticed with a couple of resume consultations we've done before for liyab, where if you really want to pursue or be able to have that option to explore after you graduate, for example, that oh, maybe I don't want to like really just do for example pharmacy, I want to try like different functions, then at least having these like either org work or volunteer experiences or freelancing experiences under your belt give you that chance to broaden like the opportunities that is available for you, which is what I think like what you've done with your video editing or graphic design sort of experience that you've done for your freelancing as well, because now even though let's say you are still primarily a writer, if down the line you want to explore something beyond writing, you have that option now because you've done something to diversify your skill set. So I think that's a very
Yeah.
interesting take on um, or a very interesting strategy in terms of like what experiences to go for. Because the tendency with internships is it's a bit more rigid that companies look at your course. So if you
True.
are a writer and you are applying for a graphic design internship, um, it's not as straightforward or it's not
Yeah.
as easy trying to look for internships in that space, right?
Definitely.
But if you're like volunteering, for example, if you're volunteering for something, then they're not as I guess picky, or they're not
You're not as strict
as
about it.
strict.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what is great about the alternatives that you've outlined tonight, that sure internships are do add credibility to your resume, but I think like the number one thing that you can get out of these alternatives is really that ability to broaden the skills that you are developing, and then um, expand, I guess, the opportunities available to you later down the line. It's also a really great part where you mentioned a while ago that it's also a good way to break out of molds. All
I
right.
mean, I'd like to share something to add something. There is something we call a T person. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but a T person, you know it? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
when you're really good at this one thing. This is like your foundation. And for me, that's writing. But then it's also better, or you'll also be more appealing to recruiters and employers if you have a lot of other skills too. Not exactly fields that you're good at, but you're also capable of doing them. I feel like that's really attractive because you're not just your job responsibilities or just one field. So
Yeah, I love that you brought up the concept of a T person. So if everyone can see this, right, that's a T, where you specialize in one thing. This could probably be your course right now. And typically internships help you with that part of your experience. But the alternatives to internships like orgs, volunteering, or freelancing may help you develop that other part of it, or that other dimension of yourself in, again, trying out different things. And never know, maybe you discover something in that org experience or volunteer experience or freelance experience that you'd want to later on something deepen or deepen, sorry. We have a we have a really nice question here from Nico, who is asking, can you recommend some freelancing outsourcing platform for beginners that want to start a career in freelancing?
hmm. I only use one of those platforms, so it's the only one I can suggest. I haven't tried the others. I use Upwork, and I don't even use it that much, but it's good for a start definitely because they give you reviews, and it's a really credible platform. It's easy to find clients there. Apart from that, also try asking your friends, your acquaintances, your family members with businesses or whatsoever who might need help. You can always start there too.
Yeah, I think it also depends, I guess, on the type of freelancing that you're looking to get into.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Precisely what Lara said, I think like Upwork is a good platform for you to start, since it has like it has something for like a diverse set of freelancers.
It's
Like my
easy.
sister, for example, is a pharmacy graduate, so she was even able to get like freelancing jobs on transcribing like medical documents on Upwork. So it's not just like something for like for just writers or graphic designers or video editors, but like um Upwork is quite diverse in its
Mm.
offerings. Although like what Lara said, parang I get why she doesn't use it as much, because she's built a personal brand around her freelancing, that she doesn't need this platform anymore to get her clients, right?
Yeah, and a lot of professional freelancers I know actually use Facebook groups to find clients. That's their technique. Like, for example, their niche or their audience or their customers or their desired clients, dream clients are bloggers and influencers in lifestyle and travel. Then they join Facebook groups with those people and then they reach out to them and it works and it pays way higher than in Upwork.
Yeah,
So yeah.
definitely. I think you can just simply leverage like the tools available to you already, like Facebook, or if you have a LinkedIn, you can easily just
Yeah.
add like that you're a freelancer on your bio. And you never know. There's also an opportunity on LinkedIn to even just like, if you're offering certain services, you can just like add that on to your profile already. So that's you may not need to look any like further than the tools that you already use right now, possibly. All right. So thank you for that question, Nico. I hope that helps to some extent. But this is very interesting though. Like, please, if anyone's watching and then you're interested in going deeper into like discussing freelancing in this group, um, please let me know in the comments if you're interested in something like that. So maybe we can find more like, for example, speakers or panelists to do a Q&A or a talk here in the group, and then we can explore that whole like freelancing industry even further. So let me know if that's something that interests some of our viewers right now. But do we have any more questions coming from Facebook? Oh, someone is actually suggesting, I recommend for those beginners for freelance outsourcing platform. There's freelancer.com, there's Fiverr, 99 Jobs, Zestily, Design Crowd, and many more. So thank you for that. This is what I love about this group. Like if there's a question that I cannot answer, there is someone in the group who can. So that's what I like about this, and I really encourage everyone to, if you have anything to contribute or anything to say, you want to give some support to any members of the group, um, do that, please. I'm sure you would have made someone's day. I'm sure surely you've like helped the community for that. So thank you for that. Anyway, we're nearing 9 o'clock, and I don't want to take any more of anyone's time tonight. But I'm pretty sure you've all learned a lot from Lara. So thank you so much, Lara, for lending your time this evening, sharing with us your experiences, and finally some tips for those who are looking for alternatives to internships right now. So just a quick recap: that's orgs, volunteering, and freelancing. And Lara gave like, if you like after this live you want to go back and take a screenshot of Lara's slides, for example, for her tips, or if you want to ask some more questions from Lara, maybe you can continue to comment on this video even after we're live. Lara is part of the group, of course, so she'll be able to see it and maybe respond to some of you there. All right. Lara, maybe before we go, do you have anything that you'd like to say? Do you have anything to promote to our group right now?
I just want to say first, thank you for inviting me. It really means a lot because I'm still a college student and I still think it's wild that I got this invite. And then thank you also to our listeners for tuning in. I hope that you learned a lot from this webinar. I was really trying so hard to make it more informative rather than personal, but honestly, it's been hard. But I hope it still was pretty informative for you guys. And For plugs, I don't really have anything. I just like to clarify something because I heard that Metamorphosis Group is seen as like a competitor of Layab, but they're
Mm.
not. We're not because we target an older audience. So there's that. There's that. Just to clarify.
Oh, all right. I mean, well, honestly, personally, competition is not such a big deal for me personally because Liab's mission is to empower the Filipino workforce. So
Yay! I like that.
I really believe that if you are in the business of doing good, competition is always a good thing and it's a welcome thing because that means someone else is working really hard on your mission as well. So it's like it's
Yeah.
something we all share. It's not that big of a deal for me. That's why I keep sharing resources as well from other groups and from other blogs. Like for example, we have Justine here, who I know also gives
Yeah.
like career advice and does resume
Yeah.
consultations. So not really an issue for me, but thank you for that clarification. I
That's great actually because our CEO actually wants to collaborate with you.
all
Oh my
right,
god.
awesome. Maybe we can talk about that more after this
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
for I guess for the rest of the people who are listening right now, I thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. And we have more talks in store for you. So we're just finalizing the roster for that. But I am looking forward to the next talks and tackling more questions from the group. Again, if you have any like ideas for like what you want us to tackle here in Liab. I actually have a couple of HR people messaging me, hey, maybe this could be your next topic. This could be your next topic. So that's very interesting because I feel like during this time, most especially, there are a lot of questions on any job seeker or even any employer's minds right now. So if there is anything that Liab can help you with, any questions that we can probably give more clarity on, just feel free to send them over to our Leah page, or you can post here on the Leah support group so that people can help you and support you. All right. So, again, thank you so much for tuning with us tonight, and I will see you next time. Bye.